Right, so Hytale. This game has been out now for about a week, and I gave it a try. I've played for about 15 hours. This is my a nice little base here. Made it in an orc camp, so sometimes they spawn back in on top of my base, but you know, that'll probably get fixed. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun, and I wanted to make a little video to like review and talk about some things that maybe I don't like, and some things that I thought were pretty well done. Because this is not a bad game in any way. It's just very early on, and even though there is a decent bit of content, if you go into, for example, the creative inventory, there's like a million different items, and you can only get like half of them actually in game, in survival. Basically, my point being, there's still a lot of stuff to add, to program in, though there is still a game here, and especially with the modding and the multiplayer, I think you can still get a lot of hours out of this game, even in its current state. So the first thing I want to talk about is the world and the exploration. I think it's very well done. There's a lot of structures, there's a lot of variety in the 4 different zones they have, with a bunch of different biomes. I think a comparison to make here is not to Minecraft, but to Breath of the Wild actually. Not only does the environment feel very kind of, I guess kind of, you know, you're gonna hear the birds and you have some background music sometimes. It feels very kind of like Breath of the Wild, I think. And also there's a lot of structures and stuff around. Like for example, you have the house over there, and there's a bunch of ruins, and I found this dungeon in the ice region, which was very cool. There's a lot of stuff to do, and there's a lot of stuff to find and explore. And I think that's very well done. I think it also opens up a lot of different play styles, because you don't have to just go mining in a cave to get everything. You can go and explore a bunch of ruins around, you can go and mine rocks from the surface or from underground, and you can go and fight enemies and stuff. There's a lot of stuff, like, there's a lot of variety. I think that's good. The game has these teleporters, which you can get pretty early on, and I think they're a pretty good feature for exploration and stuff, since the map is very large, and the zones are very spread out at times. Now the graphics, I think the game looks alright. It's not, you know, it's obviously not AAA super amazing, but it, you know, it is a block game after all, so you know, that's to be expected. And overall, it can be a bit flat sometimes, especially if you're high up and looking at the water, like kind of right now. Well, the water looks alright right now, but especially in the ocean, the water can look a bit weird. But otherwise, other than some of the visual bugs, I think it's very clean, very alright, very standard, very cool. And while we're on the topic of the environment and Breath of the Wild and whatever, like I said, the music, there's no music playing right now, but the music is very nice, very subtle, and also the sound effects, you know, it's just very ambient, feels very alive in a way. At the moment though, even though there are a lot of different creatures, they're basically just the same thing copy pasted with a different model. Like a lot of the enemies will just run at you, they can't do range attacks, they can't jump, they can't open doors, that's a big one, you can really easily cheese this game. But overall, there are still some cool ideas with the mobs, and I think a lot of their AI and stuff will be fleshed out in the future, so that's good. Now, admittedly with the combat, there are a lot of different playstyles. There's, you know, big swords, and there's mace, and you can use your bow, or you can use these daggers, and we'll get into the daggers later, they're pretty broken. The point is, there's a lot of things you can do, however, the enemies are just kind of so stupid at the moment that if you build a block tower up, you know, kind of like speedrunning in Minecraft, or if you just go behind a door or a wall, also just in general, circling around an enemy or walking backwards from it is usually enough to kill it. For example, a lot of the charge attacks fling you forward, and you can just bounce off like that. Now obviously he died in one hit, but if he wouldn't have died, he would have kept chasing me, but he wouldn't have been able to hit me, so I would have just charge attack, gone back, charge attack, gone back. Now it does use some stamina, but stamina regenerates really fast in this game. It's never really an issue. So overall, I think the enemies should be given maybe more moves or more ways to respond to this towering up or going behind a wall. But otherwise, I think at least for PvP, there's a lot of stuff here, a lot of potential. Because, you know, there is you can block, you can push people away, you have your light attacks, your heavy attacks, you have your ult thing, which is pretty cool as well. So there's a lot of options, a lot of choices, and I think if they just refine the PvE more, I think this is a pretty good system. Now, Simon said, and the team said, that there's a lot of bugs and the game is very broken, and while that is kind of true, there's nothing really that prevents you from, you know, getting through, and well, there's no ending yet, but completing the game in a way. I think the biggest thing, or the most annoying bug that I had, was just enemies sometimes kind of spawn out of nowhere, or disappear out of nowhere. And the movement in Hytale is a bit different to like Minecraft, for example. You can jump up 1 block, or you can jump up 2 blocks. And there's also mantling. You can climb up onto rocks and stuff, and ledges. Kind of like this. I think it's 4 blocks maximum. But the thing that I used most of the time was just going like that. And you can also chain them together. A bit like that. Now obviously being able to fly around and b-hop with the daggers is probably not intended, and I think they have already patched a part of this bug. Though I wish that in the future, if they do completely remove it, they at least give us an option to turn it back on with like a toggle or something in the settings. Because I feel like having fun things like this just makes the game more, you know, it makes it more fun, right? There's also this bug that you can use to get out of caves, which I admit I did abuse a few times. But basically you just dig out kind of hole like this. You need to be 3 blocks so you can mantle up. And then you can just leave 1 block on the side like that. And then you just fly up through the roof, through the floor. Another thing I want to mention is the character creator. There are a lot of options for your skin, and I think that's cool. It's very well done. And you know, the first thing when I opened this game is I went to look at the character and I saw them with elf ears, so you know I had to recreate the goat. I think gear progression is handled pretty well in this game. You go from your starting stuff in your starting zone in this forest, and then you get some better gear, and you can go to the desert where you get some more new ores, and then you go to the ice zone and you get more new ores there. And overall, I never really felt like I was getting something too underpowered or jumping up too much in power. One thing though, in the 4th zone, the lava zone, you can find these ruined like houses and stuff. And I feel like if you were to rush there at the start, you could basically just skip everything. Because if you look at this chest here, or maybe chest, this chest, it's full of a bunch of thorium gear, which is the same gear that I have on right now. I got all of this gear from basically just looting a bunch of houses and random buildings over in the 4th zone. And I get why this is the case. But for example, I had just gotten and crafted all of this green and blue gear, and then I go over to the new zone for the first time, and I just get a bunch of it for free. So I feel like if that was changed into, maybe it was thorium and cobalt bars instead of the armor pieces and weapons themselves, that might be a bit better. And also, I assume this is gonna get changed, but right now there's no like damage numbers on any of the weapons, so I didn't even know. I think cobalt and thorium are on the same level, but they're just different durability. I think. I don't know. Another critique would be the settings menu. There's a lot of stuff here, but like I couldn't find a brightness slider, for example. One thing I found pretty annoying was the timers on crafting and the items and such. I have 2 points here. The first one being making food. Like if I want to make these skewers, for example, I want to make 10. It makes 1, and then 2, and then 3, and it just takes a while. And like you can go through a lot of food in this game pretty quickly, so I don't really see why it has to take this long. The second thing I want to mention is with the tanning rack, which is where you turn hides into leather. And just look at this progress bar. It takes way too long. I know, so you need a bunch of leather in this game anyway for backpacks and armor and tools, I think. Basically for everything. And even when I mess up the recording, it still hasn't turned this hide into leather yet. So like, you know it's bad. Though I do think they brought this timer down already. And they maybe changed some of the requirements for the backpack and such. So maybe it's alright, I don't know. But at least when I first played, for my first day, this kind of annoyed me. One thing I found pretty exciting was this ancient gateway, and you plop it down and you get this crystal thing, and you can start like kind of like a raid in like an extraction game or Destiny or something. I think these are a really cool idea, being able to go in and get some loot and get out. And even if you die, because I may have died to fall damage one time, but you know, even if you die, you get to keep the stuff you found. So that's cool. One final thing, I assume this is gonna get changed as well, but the map right now is pretty like, it looks cool, and you can see like buildings in the distance and whatever. But you can actually zoom out, and you can see like I've died here off the map, and all my portals are over here and down here, and you can't even see them. So I think they should increase the size to, I guess, infinite, if that's possible. I assume it is. And also they should try and keep furnaces and stuff loaded in while you're off exploring somewhere, because you can have a bunch of ore smelting, but if you're not there at your base, it's not going to get turned into ingots. Overall, I've been having a lot of fun with this game. I think there's a lot of potential here. We just have to give the devs time to implement all the stuff that they probably have made already, and just keep updating, and hopefully they listen to the players, which I think they will. Simon seems like that kind of guy. And yeah, that's why I'm making this video as well. I think after this, I'll go and play some PvP servers. Maybe I'll make a part 2. But yeah, like I said, I've been having fun. It's pretty great, and I'll end this video off with this cool blicky I got, you know? Yeah, Swiss cheese that dog.